Hey folks, Dave Neal here. Happy President's Day to you. And since it is a holiday, I come with gifts, that being a lot of tea, a lot of drama going on in the Justin Baldoni versus Blake Lively lawsuit saga that we have here. Like many questions you have to ask in Hollywood, are they real or are they fake? In this case, it's the HR complaints we're discussing. 3 have been leaked over the weekend to some of my content creator colleagues. I'm going to play what my content creator colleagues have to say, and I'm going to read all 3 of them. Now, in normal circumstances, when an HR complaint is leaked, you assume it's real. Why would it be made up? But in this case, since it comes from unnamed sources, my questions about these complaints are plentiful. I haven't even read them yet, but we do have our good pal Leanne Newton, amateur internet sleuth, according to the New York Times, sharing a highlighted version. So we're going to go with what she has here, and then we're going to go to our good friend Dose of Dana, and also Steph with the deets. It seems like these are the folks that got the complaints. So we'll see what she has to say and why people are wondering if these are real. Now, again, I know when folks are on one side of a story, sometimes they're blind to evidence. I'll tell you right now, if these HR complaints are real, and if the people behind them stand up in court and say, yep, I made that complaint and this is what happened, I tend to believe people. But as of right now, everything is redacted. So we're going to get into them. I'm going to share what Leanne had to say about these complaints. She says, so there are alleged HR complaints purported to have been made to Sony. Like many people, I have serious issues with them. I've highlighted several issues I have with their authenticity and shared them for that purpose. So I'll get into the highlights. But again, this was what was reported initially back in August when coverage of a mysterious feud between Lively and Baldoni began to spiral on social media and in the press. Variety inquired of Sony whether any HR complaints had been filed against Baldoni during production and was told no. And again, this article itself dates back to, December 31st, New Year's Eve. This is when he filed his bombshell $250 million lawsuit against the New York Times. Again, he also has a $400 million lawsuit against her. So she claims these are retaliatory, but lots of money on the line. Now, it might get complicated. Justin Baldoni, as a director and actor, where does the HR complaint go to? He's in charge of Wayfair. Sony's just the distributor. So could it be that Sony didn't have any complaints, but they're floating around in a department we don't know about? Sure. But if you're Blake Lively and you've been getting raked on the coals the last couple months, don't you think these HR complaints would have made their way into my inbox or somebody's inbox since then? Now, with the HR world, you're supposed to keep, you're not supposed to share these things publicly. But you'd think if there was receipts backing her up, you would want that in the public domain when you're an actor and your whole reputation's built on it, right? So again, and by the way, I'm not blaming for whoever these receipts were sent to. Daily Dose of Dana, our good pal, give her, it says I'm not subscribed. I am subscribed. Anyhow, sorry about that. Daily Dose of Dana, give her a subscribe. And over here, Steph with the deets, I'm not saying they're being used as a useful idiot here. I'm sure they looked at these complaints and said, we got to get them out there. And this is the world we live in, where getting the complaints out there lets the hive mind, a bunch of people, look at them and they can poke holes to see if there's anything wrong. Initially, the fact that the date of the complaint is not shown is very sketch, because what if these complaints all came out in January of this year? Were these revisionary history complaints, or were they done on the moment? And that's what's so important to me is, are there screen grabs of text messages to agents and things like that? Let's read the complaints. The first one, complainant, redacted. Date of complaint, redacted. Project director, Justin Baldoni. Complaint location, redacted. Summary of complaint. Complainant states she became uncomfortable with Justin Baldoni yesterday while filming. She states Mr. Baldoni put his bare hands on her butt and said he was trying to help with her posture. Complainant immediately voiced her displeasure with being touched on an intimate part of her body, and Mr. Baldoni responded with, "It's fine, I'm totally hot for my wife," in a dismissive tone. Complainant relayed to Mr. Baldoni that it did not matter what his relationship with his spouse was like, that he did not have permission to touch her inappropriately. Baldoni then responded, "Oh no, better go see HR," to which complainant replied, "I will." Approximately 3 hours later, Baldoni approached complainant and stated he was sorry they got off on the wrong foot. Complainant stated she replied, "You got off all right, but it had nothing to do with your feet," and walked away from Baldoni. Complainant's agent provided text messages from complainant, including one sentence approximately 18 minutes after incident, wherein complainant said, "Justin Baldoni just literally grabbed my ass in front of the cameras. I want to talk to someone at Sony like now." All right. Well, if this is real, providing the evidence, this is not good for Justin Baldoni. You would think that you could easily prove this is real with a text message to an agent. The agent makes usually around 10%. That's the sort of guaranteed amount that they get off of their client, and they are going to make sure that they get their money's worth by taking care of their actor or actress. So again, where's the actual, this obviously is a summary of the complaint, but where's the time-stamped evidence of this happening? Also, this would probably be recorded audio with Justin Baldoni. Now, my question, if you're Justin Baldoni and you actually did this, this is not good. You shouldn't, if someone's uncomfortable, the whole go CHR, no. If this happened, I would be shocked at how stupid he would be to sue Blake for $400 million, knowing that these skeletons existed, not in the deep past, but in the current, like you just filmed this. And this wouldn't be one of those scenarios where, I didn't realize the tone was off. No, the person calls you out right away and they filed a complaint right away. So an action would have been taken on the set, and this would have been a big deal. So as far as the Variety article where they said no actions have taken place, when you go down to the HR, this is an issue for me. What happened here, as was reported by the HR, the plaintiffs in the Times suit contends that the Times reporters overlooked text messages indicating that Lively's camp may have been waging its own PR war against Baldoni preemptively. The Times article deliberately ignores that Lively's publicist, Leslie Sloan of Vision PR, once backed by Harvey Weinstein, seeded stories critical of Baldoni, including that Baldoni was a sexual predator ahead of the film's release. The complaint states that Nathan's firm was made aware of Sloan planting an unfavorable, false, and defamatory story about Baldoni's Baha'i faith to Page 6, and also planted a false story alleging that there were multiple HR complaints during production. So they're claiming that these stories about the HR complaints were false. So my question is this: is this A, made up completely? Because it could be completely fictitious. You could do this in 2 seconds. Or is it B, information they just decided to hold on to and wait for the timing to be right? I have no idea. But for whatever reason, the smut magazines, New York Post, TMZ, all the gossip rags, they are not touching this. So for that reason alone, it doesn't pass whatever source vetting they have. Next one. Complainant redacted, also known as redacted data complaint, redacted. Project director Justin, although it looks like the date of complaint might be May or March because they see an M. Complaint location redacted. Summary of complaint. This is a summary of 3 reports filed by complainant. During the first week of filming, it ends with us. Complainant noted several unsettling experiences with her collaborator, boss, and director Justin Baldoni. So I'm assuming this is Blake Lively. On redacted, complainant was in her car with driver redacted and Mr. Baldoni. He started talking about how he had been severely addicted to pornography and had sexual encounters where he didn't take no for an answer or did not receive consent when asked for it, but he did not let that stop him. At this time, redacted's driver pulled over and insisted Mr. Baldoni exit the vehicle. She then advised redacted that her rear-facing dash camera had recorded the incident in its entirety. On redacted, Baldoni followed complainant to her trailer and was insisting that he had messages for her from her deceased father. When complainant declined, Baldoni became hostile and stated, "I thought you loved your dad." He then reappeared on set and advised the multiple crew and talent present that complainant must be dealing with hormones. On Redacted, complainant was filming a scene that was scripted to have her in a hospital gown at a time when complainant was on set, dressed in the gown and ready to film. Baldoni stopped filming to relay the complainant that she should be nude in this scene. She stated it was not written or planned that way, was not included in the nudity rider, and that the intimacy coordinator was not present. Baldoni continued to pressure complainant to film nude, stating his wife had ripped her clothes off during childbirth. Note, this investigator viewed photos of both Baldoni's children's births, and his wife was not nude. She wore a black sports bra and had her lower half covered at the time photos were taken after the births. At this time, Baldoni stated complainant was holding up filming and feeling pressured by her superior. Complainant agreed to be nude with a modesty strip over her genitals. As complainant disrobed, she asked Mr. Baldoni to turn the monitors off so that her naked butt wouldn't be broadcast to the cast and crew. He turned them off, then asked complainant to look at a script note. While she was looking at it, Baldoni quickly flipped the monitors back on. Complainant then realized she was being broadcast nearly nude to all the set monitors and every crew phone and iPad that was synced in. She requested a blanket and was ignored. She addressed Baldoni directly and said, "Get me something to cover myself," in a raised tone of voice. Complainant's assistant then walked on set and complainant in tears yelled at her, "Please cover me," and assistant threw her coat over complainant. At this time, a man complainant did not recognize came on set, and Baldoni stated this was his friend and would be playing the doctor. Complainant, being nearly nude and already invulnerable, did not want this stranger between her bare legs up in stirrups where he could clearly see her butt. Baldoni sighed and rolled his eyes and yelled, "Hold on, everyone. Let's see if Redacted wants to hold up filming again." Feeling extremely uncomfortable, complainant finished filming the scene with Baldoni's friend despite his misgivings. So this is pretty wild. Now, according to text messages that Justin Baldoni released on his website, Justin Baldoni says that in that car ride, he talked about being the victim of a lack of consent conversation. I would be very interested to see the rear-facing dash cam. And by the way, I don't think those cameras usually have audio, but boy, wouldn't that be nice to see? Because then it becomes a who said it. Is his version right or her version? Now, in his version, we have time-stamped evidence of him texting, I believe, who was it, the PR people or the editors? Maybe it was a producer saying, you know, I was talking to her about the fact that I remembered through this process that I did not give consent, you know, whatever. So I can't speak for some of the other things with the nudity riders. What's surprising to me is the first time she's meeting the doctor, the guy playing the doctor, was when she was naked on set. I mean, I understand you don't do too many rehearsals when you're filming things, but usually you'll do a blocking rehearsal while you're still clothed. So I don't understand this complaint whatsoever. But I'll share the highlighted thoughts from our good pal Leanne. Third one. Complainant redacted, data complaint redacted, project director Justin Baldoni, complaint location redacted, summary of complaint. Complainant is clearly traumatized in her verbal account of incident. Director Justin Baldoni approached complainant and asked her to speak privately. He asked complainant if she has ever had an orgasm on camera. So this is thought to be the woman playing Blake Lively's younger self. Now, Blake Lively made it seem like yes, the character was underage, but I believe Isabel was 25 at the time. So again, it doesn't make any harassment right, but it's not Justin speaking to an underage person. She was playing underage, but she was 25. She asked, Director Justin Baldoni approached complainant and asked her to speak privately. He asked complainant if she has ever had an orgasm on camera. She asked why this is necessary to know since the climax is not scripted in the scene. Baldoni then leans close to complainant's face and whispered, "I think we should go ahead and add it in. Show me what you got." Complainant did not feel she had the authority to decline. Complainant told Baldoni she did not want to do the scene. He told her she couldn't hold up filming by refusing. Complainant began improvising the scene, making what she perceived to be noises of a sexual nature. Baldoni placed either of his hands on complainant's outer thighs and stated, "Come on, you can do better than that." Baldoni's face was so close to complainant's that she could feel his breath, causing her face to mist up. Baldoni then closed his eyes for several moments and stated, "I'm allowed to say this because my wife knows what I think about a good climax," and winks at complainant, then said, "You know how hot this is, right?" Then Baldoni asked complainant to practice the scene again. This time, Baldoni positioned himself only inches from complainant, and complainant stated she needed a restroom break. Baldoni kept his hands on her outer thighs, virtually locking her in place in a very intimate embrace, she relayed. Complainant's redacted then arrived on set, and complainant waved her over, at which point Baldoni broke the embrace. I'm guessing her mother? Complainant states he was so close to her for so long, his breath on her face necessitated her makeup needing to be redone. Actions taken. Again, we don't have any right to see all of this, what the actions are, but because this trial is in one way or another being played out publicly, I think it's fair that people look at this and ask a lot of questions. Here's what Leanne had to say. The redacted dates. This information is neither sensitive nor privileged, and there's no reason to redact it. If anything, it would have been helpful to see. The incidents alleged appear to relate to a period during filming, but Sony confirmed to Variety that there were no HR complaints in August 2024 after filming was completed and the film released. The wording, so that makes me wonder if these complaints were made. Like, is there a grace period for how long you can make these complaints? Was Blake Lively encouraging people to call these complaints in afterwards? Again, I almost feel dirty even thinking of these things as options here. But as we know, was Sony lying? Usually if there's complaints, you don't share them. You just say, yeah, there's complaints, but we're not allowed to talk. For Sony to say there were no complaints, it's like, what the hell's going on? In fact, apparently, the only complaint that came out was due to ageism, which involved a sound guy not getting hired. It had nothing to do with any of this case. The wording and some of the phrases used, I'm allowed to say this because my wife knows what I think about a good climax. Oh no, better go see HR. You got off all right, but it had nothing to do with your foot, and it's fine. I'm totally hot for my wife. To me, personally, sound more like statements Ryan Reynolds would say. I'm not saying Ryan Reynolds did say them, just that I don't believe Justin Baldoni did. And again, the best evidence would be Justin Baldoni mic'd up. He would have a microphone on him. And they record audio, they just let it roll. Audio doesn't take a lot of memory to record, so a lot of times they let it roll. So if anything's happening on set, it's probably recorded. The birth scene complaint we can presume is Lively's, as it mirrors her CRD complaint. She refers to the scene not being included in the nudity rider, but we know that she did not sign her nudity rider at this time or for many months after. She claims the incident in the car was caught on dash cam, so I would like to see that. And she says that the complaint is a summary of 3 complaints she has already made, so I'm interested who and how those complaints were made. No professional would have asked to see images of a nude woman just to verify an irrelevant verbal claim. That would be a gross invasion of Emily Baldoni's privacy and would serve no purpose, as it wouldn't prove anything. That's a good point. The climax complaint alleged that the complainant was clearly traumatized. I don't agree. If it relates to Isabella, as is being alleged, then I feel her texts and interviews completely contradict this, and she did not appear to be traumatized when asked about Baldoni in interviews. Now, again, a lot of people have said you can be traumatized and still speak highly or speak positively of the person who caused you that trauma. So that doesn't really, it doesn't prove it in either direction for me. The Baldoni timeline states on May 29th, 2023, that Lively had raised concerns with Sony, but none of those concerns were referenced in this complaint. And conversely, Baldoni did not mention Sony relaying this HR complaint to Wayfair on that date. So either way, those are some interesting thoughts. Now, I wanted to read some things you guys had to say. Someone said it was also shared with TMZ and Daily Mail, and they turned it down as they thought it was nonsense, not legitimate. Candace Owens even popped up on this YouTube channel to say she had received them too. Someone sending them lots of media. Yeah, so we covered that in the morning rush, and this is obviously more of a deep dive, but Candace Owens said, yeah, they'll run with anything. In fact, they're not running with this is suspect. And maybe they will. Maybe by the time this video comes out, they'll be running with it. Maybe they just took a nice long weekend. But these magazines, they run with things pretty quickly. TMZ and others saying they aren't legit is enough for me. TMZ likely has contacts in Sony that would back it up or not. Yeah, I would think TMZ would have someone at Sony. And by the way, we have a ton of people watching this. If there's anyone at Sony who wants to give me an off-the-record look or insight into what's going on, we can keep a source quiet. I will say this, if you guys want some tea, I was offered information over the weekend for $500, and I didn't respond because first of all, I don't pay for information, and that's just not what I'm trying to do. I don't care enough to pay $500. If someone has information they want to share with me, they can share it. I don't think it was much, but hey, I don't hate the person for shooting their shot. Maybe I'd pay $3 if anyone. I'll buy you a coffee. Leaking $5 if you one of my wife's coffees. It's like $7. She gets those like pistachio pistachio oat lattes. Oh boy, it's expensive. Leaking actual documents to the public is counter to the judge's orders about waging the case in public. If it's real, Justin's lawyers would go after it. If it's real, Blake should put it in the amended complaint. On Tuesday, we will know for sure. Yeah, Tuesday is going to be a hell of a day, folks. Sony said there were no HR complaints. Okay, so we got all of that. So let's go to, here's our pal Dana talking with our soon-to-be pal Zach Peter. We just connected. We're gonna be collaborating pretty soon. This is Blake Lively's leaked HR complaint. They're calling it possible fake news.
I want to talk to someone at Sony like now. And if you notice at the end of this filing, there is an action taken. So in comparison to the first one that we read that we believe was by Blake Lively, this second complaint that we're reading has action taken that the first one did not, but it is all redacted. So we don't know which action came as a result of this.
And by the way, the fact that the summary says that this happened yesterday means this wouldn't have been something that was done afterwards. So this would have happened on the spot when they were filming. And for that reason alone, how come Sony never said this complaint existed?
And so we believe, based off of the information provided here, this is Jenny Slate's HR complaint that was filed to Sony.
So they do a great job, 2 hours going through it all. You can again check that out at Daily Dose of Dana. And then the other content creator who also received, I believe, and maybe this was sent to more people that just didn't cover it, is Steph with the Deets. Here's what she had to say about receiving these HR complaints.
Lively and Ryan Reynolds are working overtime to sway the public opinion. First, let's talk about these alleged 3 HR complaints against Justin Baldoni. The main reason why I do not believe a single one of these HR complaints is because Sony themselves have denied any HR complaints being filed against Justin Baldoni. Let's remember that because we have that on record. Now we'll talk about that more so at the end, but let's get into the details of these complaints. I had been hearing about these HR complaints, but today was the day someone actually sent them to me. And the person that sent them to me, they said a lot of people have them, which I find weird. That is weird. We'll get to that in a second. I think everyone is waiting to see what she includes in the next round, but Ryan is not a monster and Blake was definitely a victim. Justin's behavior sounds batshit crazy and predatory. From what I've heard, these complaints have been sent to TMZ, Daily Mail, Page 6. I mean, these are outlets that have definitely published things that are not true. They have not even published these HR complaints because they are afraid to be sued for defamation. So Blake and Ryan's team, they're sending these out to these media outlets that they...
And by the way, you wouldn't be sued for defamation if you think you're being sent something that's real. You know what I mean? Like you would be sued for defamation for like maliciously lying about someone and slandering them. But again, yeah, I could understand you not wanting to share this. Now, here's an interesting comment. These actually look legit, but perhaps 1 or 2 were only filed later on. If he was touching Isabella's thighs, that's not appropriate. However, I'm confused about Blake's complaint. It suggested her butt was fully out and only a frontal loin strip, but he said she was ultimately in a belly suit and underwear. For the car talk one, I don't think admitting you were abused and that you made mistakes in your past is over the line when you're filming a movie together. It seems TMI, but not harassing. I'm just not sure what he did wrong if he ultimately agreed to the 17 points and nothing bad happened from there. Others say total desperation. People think Ryan Reynolds could have wrote them. So it's very interesting. And I'll say this. You got to be careful. You got to be careful not to be limber to change your opinion with new information comes out. And with that said, my opinion hasn't necessarily changed, but looking at these complaints, you go, if there's any information that follows that corroborates them and they do show up to be legit, yikes for Justin Baldoni. With that said, a lot of smoke here, but in today's world, you're going to need someone to, stick up and say, yep, this happened. Where's Jenny Slate? Where's Isabel? And you might say, well, victims shouldn't have to speak up publicly. I'm not saying you got to speak up on my channel, but if you're Blake Lively and you're making these claims and then he's suing you for $400 million, you'd think you'd be subpoenaing Jenny Slate, Isabel, and anybody else to talk. So far, I don't believe they've been subpoenaed, and I don't believe they're part of her complaint. If that comes out on Tuesday, then boy, oh boy, do we have some stuff to report. Hit the subscribe button and just continue to provide grace if you can. You know, grace is one of those things you can't tell people to have, but I recommend it. It's good for your soul. Just have grace. Just let's see how this thing plays out. But again, if new information comes out, I'm going to be the first one to roast the hell out of Justin Baldoni. I just can't believe that at this point, just because I read a couple leaked things from that aren't from anyone specifically. So all we can go with is what's said publicly by Sony, saying there are no HR complaints, and in which case, what the hell are these things being leaked for? Could it be an overzealous Blake Lively fan? There are crazy people out there. So that could be the case. It could be a crazy person who knows what HR complaints look like, and maybe they just thought it'd be fun to throw these out there just to see if people would bite on them. I'm not biting on them, and it doesn't look like any of the content creators are biting on them. But if any information follows up corroborating them, woo boy, then we got a lot to talk about. All right, that's going to be it for this video. We got more coming your way. Hit the subscribe button. I appreciate you guys. Thanks for letting us hit 115,000 overnight. Unbelievable on the subscriber amount. And if you didn't catch the podcast that we just released a little bit ago, you can go check that out, or you can scan the QR code right here if you want to listen in your car or on a walk. Maybe you're walking your dog. I don't know what you're doing out there. Maybe you're going for a jog on this nice day. Either way, you can get the audio version every morning and every afternoon. All right, more content coming your way. It's a holiday, but we are working through it.